picture this. You've spent years studying a subject. I mean, you have memorized the vocabulary flashcards.
Right, doing all the heavy lifting.
Exactly. You've mastered the complex grammar rules, and you can read a dense article without even breaking a sweat.
Your linguistic database is just, fully loaded.
Fully loaded. But then you step out into the real world. A native speaker walks up to you at a bus stop, smiles, and simply says, "Hey, how's it going?"
Oh, boy.
And in that fraction of a second, your brain completely flatlines.
Yeah.
You're standing in an empty room, the lights just snapped off, and your working memory has completely abandoned you.
It's terrifying.
You are left staring blankly, desperately trying to remember how to form like a human syllable.
Yeah, that neurological glitch is incredibly common, and it happens because we often treat language acquisition like an engineering project.
How do you mean?
Well, we think if we just stack enough grammar rules and vocabulary words on top of each other, the structure will hold up under any condition.
Right, like building a house.
Exactly. But the reality is that the cognitive load of a spontaneous social interaction, it just hijacks the brain.
Wow.
The amygdala perceives the social pressure as an actual threat. So it triggers this mild fight or flight response.
Over-greeting.
Over-agreeting, which literally restricts your access to the higher order reasoning centers, where all those textbook rules are stored.
Which is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.
Today we are unpacking an incredibly relatable set of sources from English practice world to decode the hidden mechanics of real-life English conversation.
It's a great collection.
We're moving away from the safety of the textbook and looking at the practical, psychological survival tactics for when perfect grammar just fails.
And when the chaotic real world demands an immediate response.
Exactly. So, okay, let's unpack this. Where does this breakdown between textbook English and real-life English actually start?
Well, it starts at the very genesis of almost every interaction, the greeting. What's really fascinating here is that the standard classroom response to a greeting is often the exact mechanism that destroys conversational momentum.
Oh, totally.
Like textbooks teach us that when someone asks, "How are you?"
Right.
the correct response is, "I am fine, thank you."
Right. Which, grammatically, it is a flawless closed-loop sentence.
Flawless. But sociolinguistically, it is a dead end.
Because it treats the greeting as an actual request for data, rather than, a social ritual.
Yes.
I tend to think of conversation less like a test of accuracy and more like improvisational jazz.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. In a classical symphony, playing the exact notes on the sheet music is the goal.
Sure.
But in an improv jam session, if you just play a perfectly resolved, closed chord, the music stops.
It's over.
You have to leave a note hanging in the air for the other musician to pick up and play with. "I am fine, thank you," is that closed chord.
It really is. It abruptly hands the entire burden of conversational labor back to the other person.
Burden of conversational labor.
Yeah.
That is the perfect way to frame it.
And the sources highlight what they call the tiny door strategy to share that labor.
Tiny doors.
Yeah, so small talk isn't about delivering a rehearsed, captivating monologue. It's simply about leaving a conceptual door cracked open so the other person has something to step through.
Okay, give me an example.
Instead of slamming the door with "good," you offer a low-stakes detail. You say, "Pretty good. Busy morning, though."
Oh, wow. Yeah, that phrase, "busy morning," though, changes the entire dynamic.
It's an invitation.
Right. The other person doesn't have to invent a new topic out of thin air. They can just pull the thread you handed them.
Exactly. They could ask, "Oh, why so busy?" or "What happened this morning?"
You've volleyed the ball back with a little bit of spin on it, making it incredibly easy for them to return.
And this requires a fundamental shift in how you view the purpose of the interaction.
Which is?
You are no longer trying to prove your fluency through perfect syntax. You are demonstrating social competence by keeping the interaction fluid.
But of course, even with tiny doors, the rhythm can falter.
Oh, inevitably.
Which brings us to the dreaded awkward silence.
Yes.
When the tiny door fails, or the topic just naturally exhausts itself, the silence stretches out.
It's the worst.
The sources perfectly capture this phenomenon where panic sets in, and suddenly you find yourself intensely staring at a random plant in the corner of the room.
A plant you have never cared about in your life.
Never. But for those 5 seconds of silence, it is the most fascinating botanical specimen on Earth.
You are physically agonizing over the pause.
The physical agony stems from our hyper-awareness of social harmony, right?
Yeah, we interpret silence as a failure of that harmony. But if we connect this to the bigger picture of natural human speech patterns, silence is a feature, not a bug.
Wait, really?
Yeah, real conversation is incredibly messy. People pause to process thoughts, they forget what they were saying halfway through a sentence, they get distracted by their environment.
That's true.
Confident communicators do not view a pause as an emergency that requires immediate rescuing.
Man, I have absolutely been guilty of trying to rescue the evening by blurting out the first chaotic thought in my head just to fill the air.
We all have. But the fix the sources offer is surprisingly simple.
Yeah.
You don't need to launch into a new, brilliant topic. You just need a grounding question.
Like what?
Something incredibly basic like, any plans for the weekend? Or have you been busy lately?
Oh, okay. So it re-engages the engine without requiring a massive amount of mental energy from either party.
Right. It acts as a conversational reset button. We use small talk to manage the pace of the interaction.
Right.
But there is a completely different kind of conversational failure that happens when the pace is entirely out of your control.
Yes. The scenario where the conversation isn't stalling, it's speeding out of control.
Terrifying.
Someone is enthusiastically talking at you, throwing out idioms and rapid-fire vocabulary, and you have absolutely no idea what they are saying.
No.
The sources describe a deeply universal survival tactic for this, which they call the nod.
Ah, the knob.
You maintain unblinking eye contact, you nod rhythmically, and you deploy intermittent sounds of agreement like, yeah, and
All while your internal monologue is screaming, what are we talking about? They just asked me a question.
exactly. It is a pure performance of comprehension.
Sociologists refer to this kind of behavior as face-saving.
It's saving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are desperate to preserve our perceived status as competent, intelligent adults in the interaction.
Right.
The irony is that this performance is far more dangerous than simply admitting ignorance.
Oh, the sources shared a terrifying disaster story that perfectly illustrates this.
It's a meeting story.
Yes. A professional named Paul is sitting in a meeting, and a colleague begins explaining a complex new workflow.
And he loses it.
Paul completely loses the thread at minute 2. But rather than stopping the colleague, Paul commits to the nod. He sits there for 8 solid minutes, maintaining excellent posture and a deeply professional expression, with a completely empty head.
He is prioritizing his immediate social comfort over actual information gathering.
And the inevitable consequence arrives. The colleague finishes the 10-minute explanation, looks directly at Paul, and asks, "So what do you think?"
A nightmare.
Paul panics and attempts to salvage it by saying, "Could you go over that last part again?"
Which doesn't work.
No,
Mhm.
because the reality, as the source notes, is that Paul didn't need the last part. He needed all the parts.
Right.
He missed the entire foundation of the meeting.
What's fascinating here is the psychological paradox of language learners.
How so?
Learners often avoid asking for clarification because they believe it exposes their language skills as weak.
Right. They equate asking a question with admitting defeat.
Exactly. However, if you observe confident native speakers in a boardroom or a casual setting, they interrupt for clarification constantly.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Their primary goal is acquiring accurate data, not protecting their ego. By pretending to understand, you are guaranteeing a much larger, more humiliating failure down the line.
That distinction between seeking status versus seeking data is profound.
It changes everything.
Asking for clarification is actually a signal of high engagement.
Hmm.
But breaking out of the nod requires having the right tactical tools ready so you don't freeze.
You need everyday phrases that pause the interaction smoothly without sounding like a formal royal decree.
Like you can't just say, "I command you to repeat that."
Right. The sources offer tools like, sorry, I didn't catch that, versus, I'm not sure I follow.
And the nuance between those two phrases is vital, isn't it?
It really is. I didn't catch that. Is acoustic or speed intervention. It tells the speaker they mumbled or spoke too quickly.
Okay.
I'm not sure I follow is a semantic intervention. It tells the speaker you heard the words perfectly well, but the underlying concept doesn't make sense to you.
So it forces them to rephrase rather than just repeat the exact same words louder.
Exactly.
The sources also highlight the danger of ambiguous vocabulary, specifically calling out the word later.
Oh, later is a classic linguistic trap.
Right. If a colleague says, "I'll send the report later," that could mean in 10 minutes, at midweek, or next Thursday.
And a confident communicator refuses to accept that ambiguity.
They clarify by asking, "Do you mean later today?"
It prevents the misunderstanding at the source. This brings us to another layer of conversational survival, though.
Okay, what's that?
Well, we have covered managing small talk and intercepting floods of information. But everyday life is also characterized by a constant, low-level friction of interpersonal demands.
Situations where you are put on the spot to make a choice or a commitment.
Yes.
The micro pressures of daily life. The most vivid example from the sources is what we can call the café freeze.
I love this example.
You walk into a coffee shop, you stand in line for 5 minutes, and you know exactly what you want.
You've been practicing it.
You want an iced caramel macchiato. You step up to the register, the barista looks at you and asks, "What can I get for you?" And suddenly,
Right.
your working memory wipes the existence of every beverage known to humanity.
We see the exact same neurological mechanism here as we discussed with the greeting.
The amygdala again.
Yep. The sudden spotlight of attention causes a micro fight-or-flight response. The brain diverts resources away from vocabulary retrieval and focuses entirely on the perceived social pressure of the people waiting in line behind you.
So the solution isn't to force your brain to remember the word macchiato faster.
No, you can't force it.
The solution is to utilize stalling phrases to lower the stakes and buy your brain time to process.
The sources suggest dropping the pressure by simply saying, "Give me a moment," or "I'm still deciding."
And when the vocabulary finally returns, you bypass the formal textbook ordering structures.
Right, you don't say, "I would like to request the medium iced coffee."
You use the ultimate casual de-escalator. I'll go with the medium.
I'll go with a medium as a brilliant functional tool.
Because it sounds so much more natural.
Sociolinguistically, it reframes the interaction. It shifts the tone from a formal, high-stakes transaction to a casual, spontaneous decision.
Right.
It inherently sounds relaxed, which in turn actually relaxes the speaker's own nervous system.
But the pressure of being put on the spot isn't just at the cafe register. The sources point out a much more dangerous scenario. The conversational ambush.
Oh, the weekend trap.
Yes. Your phone rings on a Friday afternoon, a friend calls, and they ask a deceptively simple question. Are you free tomorrow?
It's an absolute trap.
Why is it a trap?
Because it forces a commitment before providing the parameters of the commitment.
If you rely on your instinct to be polite and accommodate, you just say yes.
And instantly, you are emotionally and verbally committed.
And that is exactly when they drop the bomb. Great. I need help moving my couch up 3 flights of stairs.
You are trapped.
The rule is you never answer the availability question before knowing the plan.
This is fundamentally about boundary setting. You need a phrase that politely intercepts the ambush.
What do the sources recommend?
They recommend the phrase, "Let me check and get back to you."
Oh, it's good.
It removes the pressure of an immediate response, buys you time to assess the situation, and retains your agency to say no.
And navigating that kind of friction naturally leads to the art of disagreement.
Because eventually, someone is going to ask your opinion on a controversial topic, and you are going to disagree.
And you can't just drop a boulder into the conversation by saying, "I disagree." It halts everything.
Blunt disagreement triggers a defensive posture in the other person.
So what's the alternative?
The art of soft disagreement relies on validation phrases. You say, "That's a fair point," or "I see what you mean, but..."
You are acknowledging the validity of their perspective before introducing your own.
It keeps the interaction collaborative rather than combative. And for situations where you are truly backed into a corner, the sources suggest the phrase, "It depends."
Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
Because my immediate reaction is that saying, "it depends," feels like a total cop-out.
Right.
Like, the sources use this hilarious example of 2 friends arguing over whether pineapple belongs on pizza. One person tries to neutralize it by saying, "It depends," and the other person practically yells, "No." Some things demand a hard no. Isn't there a danger that using soft disagreement just turns you into someone who refuses to take a stance?
That is a very sharp observation, and it highlights why context dictates the tool.
Okay.
In a lighthearted, low-stakes debate with a close friend about pizza toppings, planting your flag and vehemently arguing a ridiculous point is part of the fun.
It builds rapport.
Yes, but if you are in a professional environment or speaking with someone you don't know well about a genuinely sensitive issue, "it depends" is not dodging. It is a sophisticated navigation tool.
How so?
It signals that you recognize the real world is rarely black and white. It invites the other person to explore the nuance with you, rather than drawing battle lines.
Context is everything.
Oh.
But it strikes me that all of these tools, the tiny doors, the face-saving clarifications, the stalling phrases, they all rely heavily on shared physical space.
That's true.
You can see a person's smile to soften a disagreement, or watch them physically hesitate so you know to give them a moment.
All right.
What happens when you strip all of that physical context away? The sources dedicate a significant portion to the digital void.
Phones, texts, the whole nine yards.
Yes, the unique anxiety of communicating with zero visual clues.
The difficulty level multiplies exponentially in the digital space. Human communication is overwhelmingly nonverbal.
We rely on prosody. The
Yep.
rhythm and pitch of our voice and kinesics are body language.
Exactly. When you remove those, you are forcing a massive amount of nuance through a very narrow bandwidth of literal text or just a disembodied voice.
Phone calls alone are anxiety-inducing for this very reason.
Oh, completely.
The sources point out elegant ways to manage this, starting with the immediate check-in. Instead of launching into your agenda the second they answer, you ask, "Is now a good time?"
It is a display of empathy, acknowledging that you are essentially a blind interruption in their day.
And when technical failures occur, the lack of visual context causes absolute panic.
Oh, the parking garage story.
The sources shared a story that perfectly illustrates this panicked literalism. A guy is on a phone call while driving into a concrete parking garage.
Classic mistake.
His signal completely dies in the middle of a sentence. When he finally gets back above ground and calls the person back, they ask, "Did you hang up on me?"
And he panics.
In his panic to explain the exact factual circumstances, he blurts out, "No, I went underground."
Which, without visual context, sounds incredibly suspicious.
It sounds like the inciting incident of an espionage thriller. He has gone off the grid.
He provided a literal translation of his physical state.
The grammar is perfectly correct, but functionally it is absurd. He just needed to use the standard accepted phrasing, "Sorry, I lost signal," or "You were breaking up."
This raises an important question about how tone shifts when we move from voice to pure text.
Well, texts are a whole other minefield.
If phone calls strip away body language, text messages strip away everything except the literal symbols on the screen.
Okay, text drama is the perfect example from the sources.
Let's hear it.
Someone sends you a long, enthusiastic message detailing a plan for the weekend. You read it, you agree with it, and you reply with a single word, okay, followed by a period.
And the recipient immediately interprets that as hostility.
It feels freezing cold. It reads as angry, dismissive, or passive-aggressive.
A tiny punctuation mark creates a massive social rift.
Why does our brain do that?
Because the brain abhors a vacuum. Without vocal inflection to provide emotional context, the brain fills in the blank based on structural clues.
Interesting.
In formal written grammar, a period simply ends a sentence. But in synchronous digital chat, a period is a tone marker.
A tone marker.
Yeah, it implies an intentional, abrupt cessation of speech. It mimics the physical act of dropping your voice, turning your back, and walking away.
Wow, okay, so to fix this, you have to actively supply the missing warmth.
Expanding okay to okay, sounds good, or yep, that works for me. It replaces the missing vocal inflection with collaborative phrasing.
But even when you manage tone perfectly, the digital void is a breeding ground for logistical disasters.
Oh, the restaurant mix-up.
The sources detail a classic comedy of errors. Two friends agree to meet for dinner. One texts the name of the restaurant.
Right.
What neither of them realizes is that there are two restaurants with nearly identical names in completely different parts of the city.
So easily done.
They both make an assumption, neither clarifies, and they drive to their respective locations. They sit down at empty tables, miles apart, and text each other, "I'm here."
The "I'm here" text in an empty room. They are both factually correct, yet entirely disconnected.
When they finally call each other and start describing the layout of the room, the bomb drops.
The friction in that moment is incredibly high.
Both people feel foolish, both have wasted time, and the instinct is to blame the other person for the lack of clarity.
Naturally.
How do we defuse these digital bombs before they ruin the evening?
You utilize the language of de-escalation, which fundamentally requires prioritizing the relationship over your own ego.
So taking the blame.
Taking ownership of a misunderstanding is the most powerful tool you have. Even if you believe the other person was vague, saying, "Sorry, that was my fault, I should have double-checked the address," instantly neutralizes the conflict.
It removes the need for them to defend themselves.
Exactly. And the conversational partner's role is to immediately accept that de-escalation and reassure them, using phrases like, "No worries," or "It happens to the best of us."
You are actively choosing to preserve social harmony rather than winning a factual argument.
The sources point out this works in real-life service scenarios, too.
Oh, like if a waiter brings you a coffee when you clearly ordered tea?
Right. Your instinct might be to state the objective fact, "This is wrong."
But "this is wrong" is an accusation. It attacks their competence.
Exactly.
Sorry, to build on that, you soften the correction to preserve their dignity. You say, "I think this might be someone else's order," or, "Excuse me, I actually ordered tea."
You achieve the exact same goal, getting your tea, but you keep the emotional temperature of the interaction at 0.
You are utilizing language not just to transmit facts, but to manage the emotional reality of the people around you.
That's the core of it.
So what did this all mean? When we look at this entire landscape, leaving tiny doors open in small talk, understanding the psychology of the awkward silence, breaking out of the nod, lowering the stakes at a cafe, and managing the emotional minefield of a text message, what is the ultimate takeaway for someone navigating real-world English?
Well, the sources make a compelling case that we need to redefine what fluency actually means.
Redefine it how?
Fluency is not an encyclopedic knowledge of vocabulary, and it is not the ability to construct structurally flawless sentences under pressure.
Right.
True fluency is resilience. It is the ability to utilize tiny, functional phrases to keep the connection alive when things go wrong.
Knowing how to say, "give me a second," or "I don't think I can make it," is infinitely more valuable than reciting textbook prose.
It's a massive paradigm shift.
It requires completely changing your internal metric for success. You have to stop asking yourself, "was every single word I just spoke grammatically perfect?" And start asking yourself, "did the conversation keep going?"
Exactly.
If you hesitated but recovered gracefully, if you swallowed your pride and asked for clarification, if you successfully navigated a misunderstanding and got your coffee, your English worked.
The house didn't collapse, you just had to rearrange the furniture a bit.
And recognizing that the messy, unpredictable nature of conversation isn't a reflection of your language skills, it's just a reflection of being human.
Perfectly said.
Which leaves me with a final thought to ponder.
Let's hear it.
We are rapidly entering an era where our phones, our emails, and our AI assistants can auto-generate the perfect, grammatically flawless, tone-optimized reply for us with the push of a single button.
That's true.
The machine does the linguistic heavy lifting. But as we increasingly rely on algorithms to smooth out all of our communication, could our tolerance for those messy, beautifully awkward, real conversations actually deteriorate?
Oh, that's a chilling thought.
Right. If we never have to struggle for a word or navigate a misunderstanding manually, will we eventually lose the psychological resilience required to simply stand in that empty room and find the light switch ourselves?
Wow.
Something to think about. Until next time.